quote from Ruth Bader Ginsburg that says, you can disagree without being disagreeable. So I'm trying to, in my practice, as a litigator and as a collaborative divorce attorney, to understand that, we could just be respectful and nice.
Welcome back to Beyond the Bar podcast. I'm your host, Denisa Tova, and today's guest is an absolute force in both family and criminal law, Shari Gordon. She's been practicing law for, over 35 years. She runs her own firm. She's handled everything from complicated divorce cases to serious criminal defense trials. She's the president-elect of the Westchester Women's Bar Association, and she co-chaired major committees, helped young women find their footing in law, a terrific, terrific mentor. And today, though, we're diving beyond the accolades to get to know Shari better and who's behind all her accomplishments and titles. Shari, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Denisa, and I appreciate you having me on your program. Now I know how it feels to have the tables turned. As you know, I've been a radio host for over 20 years, 2 decades. So it's interesting to be questioned this time.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, and I am really intrigued. I've gotten to know you a little bit. We have mutual friends and colleagues, and I'm really, really genuinely interested in your story. How did you tell me about what drew you into the law? What was it in your childhood in a previous chapter in your life that made you become an attorney?
Well, my father, I would say, he was branch chief of the Department of Probation for New York City for adult offenders, and he believed that, in a just world, and he instilled in all his 8 children, yes, I'm one of 8 children, honesty, integrity, and being good and kind to others. And I carry that mantra to this day. And when I was in law school, I mentored and was employed by the great Timothy M. Tippins and helped write his 4-volume treatise on New York matrimonial practice. And he actually said to me, now you have to learn how to try cases, not just divorce cases, and learn the rules of evidence. And so he goes, you have a choice, being a public defender or being a prosecutor. So I decided that I wanted to help people who were so unfortunate as to be accused of a crime and could not afford legal representation. So I became a senior trial attorney for the Criminal Defense Division of the Legal Aid Society of Bronx County. And so that's where I got my beginnings of being a trial attorney. And then from there, opened up my own law practice and still did criminal defense, but because of my background in matrimonial law and working with Tim and being best friends to this day with Tim, I only do at this point matrimonial law, which is not only just trials, but I do a lot of collaborative mediation, which I always recommend to people who come to get a consultation with me. I always say, try to be civil because you're always going to know each other some way, somehow, and it's better to end this in a civil way. And in fact, as when I get sworn in as president of the Westchester Women's Bar, that will be my platform, Civility.
Wow. I want to go back to you were one of 8 siblings. What was that like in your household?
Well, I used to go to bed and pray or dream that I woke up as an only child. Um, you know, but now with my best friends being my siblings, I I thank my parents every day. God rest their souls, that they gave me these best friends, and so I feel very blessed. And I have 19 nieces and nephews, and I have over 10 grandnieces and grandnephews, and My son is getting married and will be a grandmother myself, which is like incredible. So yeah, no, it was really, interesting. And actually, I went to a wedding recently for one of our friends, my husband's friends, and she goes, well, I said, congratulations to the grandmother. And I said, she asked me, well, who do you know here? I said, well, I went to Hebrew school with Jeffrey Feldman. She goes, that's my son. I go, yes, I know, Mrs. Feldman, that's your son. She goes, well, what's your name? And I go, well, my name is Shari Cash. I go by Shari Gordon because that's my name professionally, but my name is Shari Cash. And she goes, well, what was your name when you went to Hebrew school? And I said, Shari Gross. And she goes, I knew your mother. And I'm like, oh no, Mom, what did you do? What did you do, Mom? This is one of my mother's paintings of George Washington.
Wow.
And I have George behind me because he wrote the book, or he has a book on the 110 rules of civility. So I'm reading it so that I could be, and people who are watching this podcast, they would say, Shari Gordon, she's civil, she's a kick-ass trial attorney. But after 40 years of practicing, I was 35 back when you read my CV, Denisa, but I learned at an early age, to be civil, and I want to practice what I'm trying to preach to my mentees, and that is that, and in fact, my girlfriend, Michelle Tarson, recently said, gave me a quote from Ruth Bader Ginsburg that says, you can disagree without being disagreeable. So I'm trying to, in my practice, as a litigator and as a collaborative divorce attorney, to understand that, we could just be respectful and nice. You have to remember, I was trained by Timothy Tippins.
I was
And
going to say.
as we all know, he's an incredible trial attorney.
Yes.
But he did teach me one thing that stuck out to this day. He taught me a lot of things, and my name is, I was acknowledged in his books. He's very funny in what he said about me, but he always taught me, Shari, you'll have plenty of clients throughout your life, but always remember one thing is that your opponent is always your friend and will always be your friend. You'll have many cases with your opponent and opposing counsel, and they're not the enemy. And I'm like, are you sure? And
Right.
now after 40 years, I can actually say, yep, Tim, you were right. And it's never too late to learn. And when I'm in court now, I move the microphone away because I speak with a loud voice, being one of 8 kids. I'm number 6. So I speak with a loud voice and I try to whisper. And I could see the judges leaning forward to hear me. And I'm like, oh, good. I'm speaking with a calm voice now. So, but growing up with 8 kids, it was hard. My father was a civil servant, my mother was an artist, and it was, we didn't have a lot to eat, that's for sure. But they were very kind people, and they always knew that all 8 of their children had to be educated. They didn't tell us that we had to pay for it ourselves, but nevertheless, I think I was 40 when I paid off my last student loan.
Wow.
But they made it very important to know that you had to be educated, and that was part of life. And they took us everywhere, all around the country. We went to every single state.
Really?
One state, Hawaii, and interestingly enough, I'm going for my first time because my son is engaged to a wonderful, wonderful woman who's from Hawaii, and that's where their wedding is. So I'm going to go to my 50th state now, Hawaii, for the first time. So I'm very, very excited about that. So I have 2 sons, Samuel and Noah. And Noah, I'm very, very proud of as well. And Noah's in the IDF, and my son Samuel finished with a tour of the IDF. He was a paratrooper, and he's doing very well. And I'm very proud of both my 2 sons.
What is sounds like you yourself have done a lot of personal growth and evolution. What is one of your pet peeves still?
I'm very, very sensitive, Denisa. Very sensitive. You wouldn't know it. And people listening to this who know me as a litigator would say, "Oh, come on, Shari." But really, I'm very, very sensitive. Um, and I don't, I think you have to really boil it down to I cannot take it when someone lies. I lied when I was 16 years old. I'm not joking. This is a true story. I was vice president of my Hebrew high school, Young Judea, and I told my dad I was going to a Young Judea meeting. And instead, I went to this club called the Gemini Club with my girlfriend, Susan Fishman. And my father,
Oops.
he knew that it wasn't true because I can't lie. I'll get caught. It's just Janet Malone once said, "Shari, with you, what you see is what you get." And he knew, and he called Susan's mom, and sure enough, all of a sudden I felt my hair being pulled, Denisa. I
Oops.
turned around and it was my dad. And he said, "Shari," I thought I was like definitely like going to be in trouble for the rest of my life. And he got in the car and we were in the car. I was in the back seat. I was so afraid. And he goes, "Shari, if you learn nothing from this, nothing, learn one thing. If you lie, you're terrible at it and you're going to get caught. You're going to get caught." And it really stuck with me. And
Right.
so if you ask me, my pet peeve is someone who lies and would say, "Oh, sure, you're in the wrong profession. All lawyers are, come on." I can only name on maybe two fingers, two lawyers that I could say as a matter of course, that's their nature.
Mm.
Other than that, I've been very fortunate to be around colleagues who are really, truly care about their clients, who don't lie. My integrity, my credibility, frankly, what Timothy Tippins taught me is all that you have as a lawyer, really. Because we all know you're smart. You're Phi Beta Kappa, you're this, you're that. We all know that you're smart. It's your integrity. It's being an honest and human being. It's being honest. It's being honest before the bench. That's all you have
Yeah.
as an attorney, and it carried with me all these years. And it's so important to me, Denise. I could cry because when I see in papers lies, or when I see falsehoods, or when I see things that are simply not true, I'm like, how could they not get in trouble for that? How could that person get away with that? How could the judge allow that? And so that's my platform, is civility, being honest, being credible, having integrity. And you can, like Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, you can do a lot. You can say a lot. You can be really, and in fact, Richard Willstatter, who's a phenomenal criminal defense attorney, he posted something in LinkedIn today, I think it was today, or reposted something about an attorney who was in the courtroom and her client was late. And she didn't want to throw her client under the bus because, that's you put yourself out there first. You fall under the bus before you put your client there. And she said everything honest, everything correctly. And in the end, the judge was so thankful to her for being doing what she did and doing it so well. And that's my goal. That's what I always will do every day, or try to do every day. Um, for the rest of my career, whatever, however long I practice. But my clients come first, and being honest is always the way to go. There's no other way to go. None. And I'm sure you feel the same way with what you do, Denisa. And
Oh,
that's
yes.
for our clients to you.
Thank you. It's also why you're sort of attracted to certain people, and some people shy away from you. As I prefer direct and honest, and you can be very respectful. And I think it's really not. I tell people it's when you start taking it personally and it becomes colored based on your upbringing, your experiences, and you start adding to it. It's, to me, it's a, you are sending information or you are receiving information, and that's all it is. And the minute you start interpreting it and, internalizing it, it doesn't serve anyone. So I couldn't agree more. I think there is this fear that leads to people pleasing and then sort of bending the truth. And so I really, I admire that. I admire that very much. What do you do when you're not practicing law, when you're truly not working? What does that look like? How do you, well, let me ask you, how do you reset?
My husband and I, we moved to Lake Mayapack, which is in Putnam County, although I have law offices in Westchester. Um, we have a boat. We go boating a lot, and we love having our family and friends over and doing things like that. Reading. We love to travel. We want to see the world. I've seen lots of it. My parents instilled in us the importance of knowing about different kinds of people and where they come from. A little embarrassing at times what my mother would do, which would even ask how they care for their children. And I'm like, Mom, isn't that a little personal? Even at a young age, I kind of knew it was like a little embarrassing, but you know. I have a lot of friends that I enjoy doing hiking and walking, and I haven't done that in a while. I mean, COVID was, even though it was such a terrible pandemic, it really was a reset button for a lot of us. But I think right now, I think it's so important for us to give back to the world and to give it a sense of calmness and respect and civility. Really, just that's, I'm going to try to do that for the rest of my, whatever God gives me in this world of life, is to try to create a world of civility, like George Washington. So thank you, Mom, for
Ah,
painting George and giving him to me. And I will reframe it, but I kind of don't want to because Daddy did the frame for this, and it's the
mhm.
last picture that she did that, because all throughout my house, I redid her works with really very nice framing, and except for this one, because I just wanted to have a memory of what my father would do for her every time she painted something, and that was like every night. I'd wake up in the morning and something new would be in the kitchen. Uh,
Really?
so she was really a wonderful human being, and she cared about people. Um, I think the most important thing in the world that we all must be is honest and kind and respectful, courteous, and I will try to do the same in my daily life. And I won't succeed every day. I will make mistakes, but I'm going to be that person who will learn from them. And even if I do it every day, a mistake. I remember last week, Judge Grossman yelled at me, and I was very upset, and I'm still upset about it, but I deserved it most likely because he's a very kind and civil and good human being and great justice. And we're very happy to have him as our supervising judge of the Ninth Judicial District. So I, because of his honesty and integrity and caring of our world and of our community and of the lawyers and the bar and the judiciary. So I do apologize, Your Honor. So please forgive me, and I will try better next time and every next time that there is.
You're you're so sweet. I asked you about a pet peeve. What makes you laugh? Like belly laugh?
Well, I was just talking, I do a lot of mentoring for the law students at the Elizabeth Haub School of Law in White Plains, and with my, you know, bar membership for over 25 years now at this point for the women's bar. I try to do as much mentoring and pushing for legislation that is supportive of women's rights, which I've always said to the men that I implore upon becoming a member of the Westchester Women's Bar Association. Women's issues are men's issues, and men's issues are women's issues, and it's really important to understand that. But right now, I hope that it's important that we all give back to the young lawyers that are just starting this world, this profession,
Mhm.
and teach them, instill within them that they can be wonderful advocates and wonderful lawyers for their clients and do their job right and respectfully and within the rules of ethics and in the disciplinary rules and even in those gray areas of the rules, if they're honest and have integrity and courage and civility. And that's what I'm going to do and have been doing. And I implore upon all lawyers to join as many bar associations as you can. I was speaking, as I said, to a lawyer the other day, another lawyer who said, "Oh, I only belong to one, and I'm hoping to join two." And I said, I belong to at least five. And I know it's expensive, but I think part of my platform will be is to give a discount if you belong to more than one or two bar associations, because last year, I think one of the justices of the Court of Appeals, our highest court here in New York, had had said during his keynote speech that I think the importance of being a member of a bar association or bar associations is so crucial to being a good lawyer. And I believe that wholeheartedly. I kept saying, "Bravo, bravo," not because I'm a member and not because I'm involved in an officer and a chairperson of committees. It's because I really truly believe that's so important. And I know that the women and men that you've interviewed in your podcast, Denise, they've all said, they must have said all that. They must have said being a member of a bar association is so important. And I'm sure you're a member of many associations yourself for what you do. That's how come
Yeah.
you're so good at it. So, it's important to give back.
Yeah.
You can't just be a taker. You have to be a giver.
True. No, that's true. And it's showing up. And you're right. I like what you said about giving back to our incoming attorneys, to the younger generation of attorneys. I mean, they're human beings. We have a lot to learn from them as well. They're curious. And to me, I would always say you ask questions, showing up, asking questions, connecting. I think that's really important.
I
Absolutely.
did,
Yeah.
excuse me, I did for the Wilson Elser, they are very involved in Read Across America. Jackie Hatter, who is a partner there, she's one of my dearest friends and colleagues, and she does Read Across America every year for the schools in Yonkers, and I enjoy it so much. And I was reading to the fifth graders this year, and I ended up spending 2 hours in the classroom. Of course, they wanted to know how much money I made. That was very important to them, which
Right.
I thought was very funny. But I try to answer in a way that was not so specific, but that yes, I could afford a nice car and
Yeah.
clothes and whatnot in the house. But it's more important that you follow your journey, and you don't even know what your journey is. It could be this path, it could be that path, and it doesn't mean that this path is wrong or that path is wrong or right or wrong. You may take many paths throughout your lives, and that's important to take those paths, and because
Mhm.
you never know where it's going to lead.
Yep.
I implore all of us to take as many different directions as you can, because I always thought that I wanted to be a prosecutor. In fact, when I worked for Tim Tippins, he was a former prosecutor,
Yeah.
and I did the moot court competitions, and he would encourage me to cross-examine and, use prior convictions to discredit the credibility of the witness and et cetera and whatnot. And I ended up becoming a criminal defense attorney. And it was because I really believed that there was not a good faith exception to the probable cause of requirement to be stopped and seized by a police officer. And I was given so many opportunities to answer it the other way because they really wanted me to be a prosecutor, the people that were interviewing me. And I just
Mm.
stayed true to my word that I felt that we all should be respected. And if you don't have a reason to stop me or a good faith reason that you think is good faith, then you should not be able to seize me and search me. And so I ended up being a defense attorney, and I have never regretted that. Um,
Wow.
so it is
Mm.
what it is.
Yeah. Wow.
you know?
That's now you mentioned radio. Tell me about how did you get on the radio?
Oh, it wasn't my fault, Denisa. I'm confident that, or maybe not, there's this radio program, and now it's a podcast because the station closed, but
Mhm.
it was a radio program called the Don't Worry Murray Show by Murray Richmond, and who is also another dear friend of mine. And oftentimes when he would be on trial, he would ask me and this the belated um, Honorable Kevin Quaranta, my co-host at the time, who became my co-host, but he would ask Kevin and I um, to host his radio program when he was on trial. So Kevin and I would do it. And then eventually, the ratings, I must have been very good at the time. Um, the owner of the radio station, the late William O'Shaughnessy, a very famous author and owner of the station, had asked Kevin and I if we'd like our own program. And of course, my first question was, well, do I have to pay anything? Because if I do, forget it,
Yeah. Right.
And then, but that really was Kevin was Judge Quaranta would say, Shari, no, they should pay us to do this program, and of course that was not going to be the case. It
Yeah.
was radio program was to make money, not lose it. But eventually, Kevin convinced me to co-host we ended up calling it the First Friday program.
Mm.
Kevin was a very religious Catholic man, and I'm Jewish, so he later explained to me First Friday was a very important day in the Catholic faith. And I said, that sounds wonderful because it's going to be on Friday and
Yeah.
it's a radio program and it's going to be a legal program and that's a perfect name for it. So I definitely thank you. That's a great name. And so for over 20 years, we hosted
Wow.
the First Friday program together.
Mm.
And when Kevin had passed away prematurely which is very sad, his sister, the Dr. Mary Beth Morrissey Esquire, became my co-host. She was a healthcare attorney, and interestingly enough, during one of our programs, it was always my job to get the guests. So I said to Judge Quaranta, Kevin, I would say, I have this colleague friend of mine who is so smart. She's very involved in health law and she, is very into maternal mortality. And I brought her in as co-chair of reproductive rights for Wabosny. And I think she'd be a great guest. And he goes, well, what's her name? And I said, Dr. Mary Beth Morrissey. And he said, Shari, that's my sister. And he goes, oh my God. I didn't,
That's
I
great.
didn't know her maiden name was Quaranta. So,
That's great.
so Mary Beth became my co-host, and I've had many co-hosts as well. Kristen Browdy, Esquire, was my co-host at one point, and she moved to Florida, so it was, in-person program, and so that was not tenable at one point or another. So, and then William O'Shaughnessy passed away, and his son, who was the president, sold it and the airwaves with it and then the program and the station closed. So now I have Fridays free at least, so I do more work, of course, Denisa, get my work done.
Yeah.
So it was fun while it lasted, and I always gave because they were always recorded, so I would always give the recording to my guest, whoever the guest was. And it was very nice. And a lot of lawyers advertised their law practices during the program. So it must have been successful. I never frankly asked. Uh, I never asked Mr. O'Shaughnessy, hey, are you making money on this? But it was interesting. And I met a lot of wonderful human beings. And I became Bill's attorney for a while during his divorce. So that was interesting. He was
Mm.
married to Nancy Curry. I could say that now because Mr. O'Shaughnessy passed. So I could say that. And that was very interesting case for obvious reasons. Curry Chevrolet, Curry Honda, One day I asked Bill, I go, Bill, my gosh, that pocketbook is beautiful that she's wearing. And he's like, yeah, she has like 12 of them in the closet. And I go,
Oh
wow,
my
it
goodness.
must be like, what, a couple of $1,000s? Yeah, $64,000, Shari, for each of those. I,
You know
I,
what?
I
This
definitely
is
couldn't relate.
right. Listen, we'll have to do this again. I know we can just go on and on and on, but you just gave me a tip of an iceberg of your incredible story. So I really want to thank you
You're
for
welcome.
just sharing yourself here, being vulnerable. And I love your message about civility and kindness, and who would have thought? So thank you so much. Thank you so
Oh,
much for coming on the show.
thank you. And I'm sorry it took me so long to say yes. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Um, I guess once Tim went on your show, Denise, I said, oh, all right, I'll do it. So, and it's interesting to be asked questions instead of being the person asking the questions. So, I'll open myself up again in the future. So thank you for having me, and I really appreciate you, and I appreciate all that you do for us lawyers. Seriously, seriously teaching us how important it is to write good agreements, especially when it comes to retirement assets. So we do appreciate you very, very much. And this is not an infomercial. It's
No,
it's from
we
my
didn't talk
heart.
about this. No, thank you.
It's
Thank you.
from
I
my heart.
really,
So
really
thank you.
appreciate that. Thank you. And to our viewers and listeners to know how to get a hold of Shari Gordon, we'll be linking a bio here under the show notes. And of course, follow us on all social media channels and our YouTube channel, Beyond the Bar Podcast. And until next time, stay curious and stay inspired.